Ah, so I see. Now it's all about the next election, as usual. So it's not about policy, it's about who wins power, or who stays in power, or who gets into power next. That's what it's all about. Quoting here from an article in the Washington Post by Dan Balks, in a week when Congress finally passed the Financial Regulatory Reform Bill and the oil finally stopped flowing in the Gulf, this is according to the Washington Post, mind you, Democrats spent much of their time on an enterprise they can ill afford, arguing amongst themselves. The Democrats' political mission is clear. They want to prevent Republicans from taking control of the House. But for 5 days they engaged in what one administration official called a circular firing squad over an accurate, the Washington Post says, assessment of the political climate voiced by White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs. So, at a time when their goal is to persuade voters to see the fall elections as a choice rather than as a referendum on President Obama's leadership, this was an opportunity lost. So guess what? The Democrats are now in trouble. And it isn't because they've not been trying hard enough to work together with the Republicans. You know, Washington, D.C., the crowd in Washington, D.C. is so out of touch with regular people that they cannot even see that the most obvious question here. What alternative does the Democratic Party actually pose versus the Republicans? Because that's what people are getting fed up with. Because if you don't actually stand for something, if it's just empty rhetoric, and this financial regulatory reform bill is just another bunch of crap as far as I'm concerned, you know, more leniency towards Wall Street and so on, just like the health reform bill. What are voters actually supposed to think if all you do is basically spout out empty rhetoric as to how you are for the people and the working class, when at every turn, when it actually comes down to actual policies, all of that means nothing. So this is why Democratic voters are probably going to stay home in large numbers this coming election. But the people at the headquarters at the national leadership level, you know, of the Democratic Party, they can't see that. You see, if you don't stand for something, if you're going to be wishy-washy about everything and basically shake your opponent's hand at every turn and not even trying to get easy votes passed. I mean, after all, you guys are the majority in Congress now, right? And you've got the presidency. So what's the problem? Well, maybe the problem is that the Democratic leadership doesn't actually stand for what they say they stand for. That might be problem number one. But of course, you know, you won't hear that on our mainstream media, including the Washington Post. So let me read you some commentary from Glenn Ford over at the Black Agenda Report, who spells it out a little bit further for you. Having transferred trillions of public treasure for the sake of Wall Street's health, Obama now picks up where Bush left off on Social Security. Obama's Deficit Commission is pre-programmed to assault the last vestiges of our social safety nets. The president is the right wing's most potent weapon, the one before which liberal Democrats throw up their hands in surrender without the dignity of a fight. The new president immediately started the clock ticking on Social Security and other entitlements by scheduling the so-called deficit summit for later in 2009. But it was not yet time for a full court press on the poor and elderly people's programs. First, Obama needed to shore up the finances of the Wall Street banksters that were amongst his earliest and most generous supporters. The bank bailout was priority number one, to be followed by the farcical healthcare bill designed to funnel trillions to the insurance and drug industries. A frontal attack on Social Security would have to wait a year or so. Well, now it's here. In April of this year, Obama once again reminded everyone that everything is and always has been on the table as far as he's concerned, including Social Security. His so-called deficit commission is stacked with rich sociopaths, sharpening their knives to carve up, sell off, or otherwise doom Social Security. It is a battle that safety net defenders thought they had won against George Bush. But Barack Obama has picked up Bush's marbles and put them right back into play. He's the right wing's most potent weapon, as Glenn Ford points out. Basically, Obama is working in plain sight over the last 18 months, and he has constructed and rigged a deficit commission to render a kind of death sentence to the foundational programs of Roosevelt's New Deal. Obama will pretend these circumstances and Republicans are forcing him to call for austerity. But that's a lie. He came in signing the GOP song and is behaving precisely as one would expect from a center-right politician. Obama is now in his ideal element, constantly saying yes to the party of no. I'll post a link to some of these articles.